Ooh, that's rather balanced. Top of the morning to you. You already know this your boy Wavy Wayne from Wavy.wav. And yes, I am wearing glasses, so let's not let that be the topic of discussion. You know, not let that be the topic of discussion today, man. I want to talk about the art of mixing today. You know, it starts to make sure that we look at mixing as more of an art form than like a science or a skill, right? I got to thinking that a lot of times on especially, even I'm guilty of it too, like on my YouTube channel and my lives, we talk so much about the technical aspects of mixing that we lose sight that actually mixing it's like a performance. It is an art, right? It is not just something that you do. It is something that you actually perform, like playing an instrument. Achieving a great mix is akin to being a great guitar player or a great pianist or whatever instrument that you're in. It is it's a musical expression, right? So I just want to, bring that topic up today and just talk about how we can be more artistic in our musical expressions. Yes, the tools that we use will help us to mix faster. They can help us to make decisions a little bit more quickly. They can help us to be more consistent with our processes. But a certain piece of gear does not guarantee that you're going to have a great mix, right? A certain piece of gear doesn't necessarily put your mixes in a higher class. Can you do great mixes on a laptop computer with no interface? Absolutely. Can you do great mixes in $1 million studio? Absolutely. But can you do great mixes if you don't understand that mixing is an art? No. No. If you only focus on the actual technical aspects of mixing, you're gonna miss out on so much. So I see people already in the comments talking about what's the best vocal chain. What about a tube preamp? See, this is exactly why I want to address this, right? Because the art of mixing has nothing to do with the gear. We got to break down like what music is, right? So what is music to you? Ultimately, my definition of music, right? And music is created to evoke emotion. Music is created to make you not only feel something, but maybe even provoke your body to do a movement like dancing, right? Right? Or open up, right? That's what music is created to do. When you are mixing a song, your objective should not be to make everything technically perfect. Because you can have a great mix and it not be technically perfect. You can have a great mix that doesn't sound good. You can have a great mix that doesn't sound good. You can have a great mix that isn't technically perfect, because the primary objective in mixing music is to evoke an emotion that the listener can feel. Now, in order for you to be able to help the music that you're working on evoke an emotion, you need to be open to receiving what the music is giving you. When you open up that session and you listen to the tracks that are in that session, you need to be open to receiving what those tracks are telling you. Not just saying, okay, I read this about compressors and this is the perfect vocal chain and this is the microphone that I'm going to use. Okay? The mix needs to evoke emotion. So what are some ways that we can do that? All right. Well, first thing first, it all starts with composition. I can't stress this enough. And this goes back to one of my favorite principles about mixing is mix before you even hit record. And that has everything to do with the production. That has everything to do with the composition. That has everything to do with the songwriting. If you can't get those principles right, there ain't even a point to mix. If you don't have a good song, Why are we wasting time mixing it? So you got to first focus on production. Focus on composition. Focus on songwriting. Focus on those elements, man. There are some literally proven ways that producers evoke emotions. There are literal proven ways that producers use, that composers use to provoke emotions. We know that, you've been knowing that major chords make you feel happy, minor chords make you feel sad, and all these diminished chords can give you all these other types of feelings, right? Learning some basic music theory is one way to help you open up to this and be more receptive and be able to interpret the language that the music is telling you. So if you are an engineer, learn a little bit more about music theory, okay? If you're a mix engineer, if you're a producer, learn and study music theory, because the music is speaking a language. And the better that you understand that language, the better you can translate that to the sound that's coming out the speakers, because it don't matter what's coming out the speakers if emotion is not coming out the speakers. And what is motion? Energy in motion. Literally, what is happening when the speaker cone is moving is energy in motion. Listen, man, I ain't come here to preach to you or teach to you. If it wasn't for IG, I probably wouldn't even speak to you. Shout out to my man Jay-Z if I just stole that bar. Okay? So, yes, the technical aspects can be important, but that's minor. What's really important is getting into a zone when you mixing. Get into that zone to where you're not even thinking about the next move. You're not thinking so much about what you about to do or what needs to be happening, to where you're literally in a zen space and reacting as things arise. Right? As the emotion fills you, as you're trying to draw out that emotion. Now, what emotion should you be trying to draw out? Well, again, it goes back to just listening to the music. If you put the song on, if there's a fat 808 on it, and it's like some trap snares, right? You know that this might be an aggressive type of song, right? So you want to make your mix choices aggressive to go with that. You want to make sure that emotion is coming out the speakers. If it's a soft lullaby that's led by a piano, you want to make sure that piano stays soft. You can have a great mix without it sounding good. You can have a great mix without it sounding good. Because great mixes is about the emotion that it makes the people feel. It's about the movement, right? We've all experienced this. Like I always use Soulja Boy as an example. Oh, you Soulja Boy up in it. Oh, Soulja Boy was mixing these records when he was 15 on FL Studio. Are they technically perfect? No. Was there distortion and stuff? Yes. Were the mixes great? Absolutely. Because every time you heard it, the emotion came across as he wanted to, right? So I think Soulja Boy is a genius when it comes to that intent. And that's another word that's so huge when it comes to mixing, is the intent. What is your intention? What is your intention on the mix? If you are just being passive and not making sure that the intent of the record, the intent of the artist, the intent of the producer is coming through, then you just making monotonous changes that ain't going to serve anybody. If the music does not make you feel something, there is no point in putting it out. As a engineer, your intention should be to make sure that you feel something while you're mixing that song. You need to feel it. Don't send it to your client unless you feel the intended emotion that they were trying to make you feel. Now, how can you tell what emotion that the client wants you to intends to evoke, whatever, right? Well, one, they shouldn't necessarily have to tell you, but they might tell you. Y'all might have a conversation. But literally, if you just listen to the music, listen to the lyrics, listen and pay attention to what's prominent in the composition, that music will tell you everything that you need to know about how to move forward with the record. And then from then on, you just feel your way through it. Just feel your way through it. How can you get better at feeling your way through it? By having a great set of tools in your tool belt. Yes, so that do mean that you need to understand your DAW so that as you are having these feelings, you're not getting caught up and hung up on technical aspects. But literally, once you learn these things, you learn how a compressor work, you learn how EQ work, you learn how your DAW work, then that becomes that basically moves out of your way. See, the gear that you use, the equipment and tools that you use can do one or two things. They can either help you be more efficient or make you less efficient and hold you back. Those are the only two things that gear can do. I'm going to say it again. The only two things that gear can do is to help you be more efficient or help you be less efficient. That's it. That's it. Ain't no piece of gear going to guarantee you a great mix. Especially if you haven't put the time in to train your ear, to understand what's happening, to be sensitive and perceptive enough to the nuances of the emotion of the music, right? Did you understand what I just said? I said you need to be sensitive enough and perceptive enough and receptive enough to the nuances of the emotion of the music in order to make the proper decisions while you're mixing. You can't come to a mix with an ego. You can't come to a mix with an ego because it ain't about you. You cannot come to the mix with an ego because it ain't about you. You need to let it go. Whatever it is that you coming with, whatever it is that you thinking is literally like meditation. You need to see things come and go, accept things as they are, because the only way to make positive and impactful change on something is to accept it as it is first. Because if you're in denial of what is, you cannot properly make it into what you want it to be. Okay? If you're in denial of what is, you cannot properly make it to what you want it to be. Like an example of that, if I'm in denial that a river is a river, then how will I know to build a bridge to get across that river, right? I need to accept what is. I'm walking along the road, I come to a river, damn. If I want to use my ego in denial, well, I'm going to just try to go through the river, act like it ain't a river. But if I accept what is, and then think about a logical path forward, then maybe I'll build a bridge. So, basically what I'm saying is that mixing is an art form. It's a performance. That's why I love mixing when people are around, right? Sometimes I like mixing by myself, but I honestly feel the most energized when other people are in the room when I'm mixing. And the reason is because it's a performance. I'm performing a mix. I don't just do a mix. I don't just mix. I perform mixes. And when I play it back to a client, they're listening to my performance. What did I do on this, right? And so that's why every mix engineer is different, because everybody performs differently. Nobody plays guitar the same way. You can play the same you can be playing the same song on the guitar and you're going to have some different inflections in the way that you do it. You can sing the same song in your voice, in your timbre of that voice, the tone, it's going to be different, even if you're singing the same notes. Mixing is an art form. Take your ego out the picture. Let the music talk to you. Stop getting caught up in the technical aspects. Remember that the gear that you use, right? The gear that you use can only serve one or two purposes. The gear that you use will either make you more efficient during your workflow or slow you down and get in your way. All right? Shout out to everybody that's buying badges. I appreciate y'all. Y'all getting it popping today. Let me see if y'all got any questions in the chat real quick. Please say this live. I definitely will. Make sure y'all save this. You preaching, Wavy Jakes. There he is, right there. Gear only helps you be more efficient or less efficient. That's it. That's it. Listen, I'm definitely going to say this live. Let me see. I got a little question over here in the chat box. If y'all got questions, let me know. Question: do you think mixing in Atmos would make a difference in hip hop or R&B? What you mean would it make a difference? I think mixing in Atmos is cool, and I like the idea of mixing in Atmos because, again, the more immersed that I could be in an environment, especially an acoustic environment, the more easily the emotion is conveyed, which is everything that I'm talking about here. Mixing is completely 100% emotion driven, right? Sometimes I might cry at the end of a mix or during a mix, man, listening to the lyrics of the song, and that's when I know I'm truly tapped in. If I feel something like, dang, maybe I'm getting upset or I'm angry, I'm allowing the frequencies to affect my emotions, because ultimately that's all we are frequencies, right? So I'm allowing the frequencies to affect my emotions, and I'm open and receptive to what the music is telling me to do. Like, I don't do one single thing every single time. Yes, I have tools in my toolbox, and like a carpenter, if I see a nail, I'm gonna use a hammer to nail it in. But every house that I build is gonna be different. I'm not just gonna go and build 100 of the same houses. That's for what? And it's impossible to do with music. It's impossible to do with a great song. Now, what is a great song? A great song means a great composition, great singing or lyrics, right? Great singing, great lyrics, great composition, and then also a great mix. Now, how do you get the great mix? You get the great mix by making sure that the emotion can come through the speakers, not making sure that the 808 is banging high and that the vocal is at the same level of the snare, or that you at -8 lufs. That's all nonsense when it comes to getting a great mix. All of that is literally nonsense. I'm telling you, because I know we spend a lot of time focusing on those technical aspects, but I don't care what level of audio engineering you in, it ain't about the technical aspects. That technical shit gets in the way. Yeah, it gets in the way. So here's what I suggest you do. You get in tune. And then what does that even mean? You see, we use all these words, but we don't even try to break down what they truly actually mean. Getting in tune. That means you need to get on the same frequency. You need to vibrate on the same level as what's around you, right? That's getting in tune. You vibrating on the same level as the music, as the emotion of that music. So how do you do that? By being open and receptive. You cannot be putting up this wall and saying, this is how I do it, this is how I always done it, and this is the best way to do it. That's not gonna get you nowhere. Get in tune. Get in tune by being open. Get in tune by taking a deep breath and letting it go. You gotta breathe. You gotta breathe through a mix. You gotta breathe through a mix. You always give me Hodge Twins vibe. That's funny. I used to watch them cats. Yo, we got a question over in the question box. I got my glasses on today. Maybe that's why I'm in this mode. These mugs don't work as good as my contacts though. The emotion is conveyed through the melodic structure, chord progression. So as an artist, when I write to a beat, that's what I try to capture first, the emotion. Bro, do you know how beneficial this live is today? Sheesh. That's what's up. I hope it is. Best way to go about getting an internship or shadowing at a local studio under an engineer. Just go in, tell them what your intentions are, and be receptive to whatever they're giving. I'm using AT 2020. What is the most things I should fix? What is the most things should I fix in the mixes? I don't know what that means. What microphone have to do? What does the microphone choice have to do with what's going on in the mix? Very little. Very little. So I'm gonna start leaning more into this. Right, today is the first time that I'm exploring this with y'all, but I want to lean more into this. You know, the meditative side of mixing, right? To where you literally get in that Zen space and you block out the world. So when you mix it, one thing I love to do when I mix, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm not scrolling Instagram and trying to mix at the same time, because mixing literally requires you to meditate through what's happening and be extremely focused. And that's the same thing as meditation. You have to be extremely focused. If you come into a mix distracted, like, oh, you know, I'm going to do this and do this. If you think you can multitask and mix at the same time, you've already lost before you began. Don't try to multitask during the mix. You need to be extremely focused. That's the only way to get through it. You're going to drop some open back headphones. I got the closed back DT77 Pros and want an open back pair. Mo, I'm going to take it 1 second from my mixing thing to address that. I don't really rock with open back headphones, because for most situations that I'm in recording, especially in home studio settings and singer-songwriter settings, even in professional studio settings, I don't want music bleeding from my headphone into the recording. If I'm mixing, I want to be isolated from the outside noise, and that's why I like to use isolated headphones. When I'm recording, isolation. When I'm mixing, isolation. Open back headphones have never been my thing. So, you know, a lot of people have asked me for those, but I'm not in the business of just making money. I'm in the business of making tools that will help in the way that I see is the most beneficial, and using open back headphones is not. Right? Because they can, you know, I just feel like you can get more use. Not that they not useful, but you can just get more use out of a pair of closed back headphones than you ever will with open back. You ever got in that meditative state while tracking? Yeah, actually. And I think that's why a lot of people like turn to weed and shit. That's why a lot of people like smoking weed while they mixing, because ultimately weed helps you to be singularly focused, right? That's when they call it you stuck, right? When you stuck, like smoking weed is a way that you ultimately put these blinders on and you become singularly focused. But it's not necessary though, right? It's not necessary. Have I done mixes on weed? Yes. Have I done mixes sober? Absolutely. And which one do I think I perform better at? Me personally, I perform better when I'm sober, because I know now through practice and meditation how to get to a meditative state, how to get into a high Zen state, just like I smoked weed without doing it. I can take myself there. Right? So like what I look for is stimulation without intoxication. That's why I often, you know, I got tea and I got coffee and and all this stuff, because I do want to be stimulated. I do have that, you know, in me, and maybe that's something else. I'm sure I can stimulate myself still without the caffeine and stuff, but I feel that it's okay to have some stimulation without intoxication as you work. Right? But yes, you be having candles. Absolutely. I be having candles lit. When I get in, I turn the lights off. When I'm really mixing, I turn the lights off. I set my vibe, because I want to be singularly focused. I turn the lights off. I light my candles. And I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I get intimate with the music, and we start to have an emotional conversation, right? We start to have this push and pull. It's not a fight. It's literally an emotional conversation that I sit down and have. It's like a therapy session, right? Because I open up, and I'm free to receive, and I'm free to give. And ultimately, the only way to 100% give is to be 100% free to receive. See, there is an old adage that people say it's better to give than receive, but I absolutely 100% wholeheartedly disagree with that. It is not better to give than to receive. It is equally important to receive as it is to give. Because if you do not receive, what do you have to give? Okay? And at the same time, you can't even receive if you are not in a spirit of giving. I always use this simple analogy of something in your hand. If I got something in my hand and I'm not willing to give it, how can I have that? That same hand that's closed trying to hold on is that same hand that's closed blocking from receiving. So when I sit down to do a mix, I need to open my mind. I need to open my heart. I need to open my ears, receive whatever the music is telling me so that I can give back to that music, give it that energy, give that emotion that the music is trying to give, right? It's energy and motion. Take your ego out of mixing. This ain't about you. Take your ego out of mixing. And once you let that ego die while you are mixing, you will start to have new revelations on moving forward. It's going to be a whole lot easier for you to do this, though, once you understand the technical aspects of the tools that you're using to work with. This is why I spend the first part of my career teaching technical aspects. And now I feel like I'm going to move into a transition to where I'm going to spend more time teaching the art of mixing, because the art of mixing has nothing to do with technology. It has nothing to do with the DAW you're using. It has everything to do with composition. It has everything to do with songwriting. It has everything to do with just being open and receptive. On that Zaza. You don't have to be on that Zaza though. You know? I challenge y'all to do this. You know, but listen. I done been on Zaza for 15 years. Believe me, I'm not telling y'all nothing that I don't know. I understand, right? There's so much weed smoke in the studio that it gets ridiculous, right? And then I just personally had to take some time away because ultimately I felt like if I am using an artificial stimulant to reach a place, then I will always need it. I will always need to be smoking if I feel like I do my best mixes when I'm smoking. I will always need to be smoking. And I didn't want to be a dependent. I don't want to be a dependent on anything besides breathing. If I can't get it from a deep breath, then I don't need it. It's okay to indulge sometimes, but once you say you be dependent, once you become a dependent, then you trapped into a cycle that can be vicious, because once it ain't there, and then I saw all this different Zaza, every different Zaza is a little different. So once Zaza today is a different Zaza tomorrow, and your mixing now is inconsistent. Your emotions become inconsistent when you use these type of things to get through the day. Your emotions become inconsistent, right? So if mixing, in the art of mixing, is all about perceiving and translating emotions through energy. That's the art of mixing right there. Receiving and translating motion through energy. That's mixing. If your energy is always on a goddamn roller coaster and you don't have a balance, then what? Then what? You gonna use that as an excuse? Or are you gonna find a way to balance yourself internally? So, I just say this to say this. I said it again, but I'm going to say it one more time for anybody that just joined us in a little bit late. The gear does not make a great mix. Your gear, your DAW, your technology can only serve one or two purposes. There's only two purposes for gear. And that's to either help you to be more efficient in your goal, or to stand in the way and slow you down. That's it. If you just going out buying gear that you don't understand, if your ears are not attuned enough to be sensitive enough to the changes in emotion, then buying a better preamp ain't going to help you if you don't have the sensitivity to perceive it. Okay? And once you get to the high level mixing, it's all about being sensitive, right? So like, when we look at this, especially as masculine You know, it's a lot of men in the music industry, in the mixing. It's probably 90% men on this live right now. We look at being sensitive as a bad thing. That's not true. Being sensitive means that you are able to perceive what's around you. And what's more masculine than having a high level of perception of what's around you? What's more masculine than that? Being sensitive is probably the best thing that you can do. You can be sensitive to your emotions. You can be sensitive to the emotions of others. You can be sensitive to the emotion of the music that you are working on. You can be sensitive to the intention of the producer and sensitive to the intention of the songwriter. And once you have all of those sensitivities working for you using your senses, right? And like, again, there goes another word thing. That's why I love words, man. When I used to get in trouble as a kid, my mom told me I couldn't watch TV. It was so liberating for me because I had sets of dictionaries in my room. And what I would just do is look at the dictionary. And then I would find all these words. And then I would go find similar words to them and see what the differences are. And words, how the prefixes of this word match up with the prefix of this word. And how they kind of work in the same way, right? So our senses, and we talk about sensitivity. So when you say you sensitive, all that means is that my senses are working at a high level. My hearing, my seeing, my taste, my touch. But there's another sense that we don't really talk about. What's the other sense that we don't really talk about? And that's emotional sensitivity. That's being in tune with the frequencies. In tune, again, with the frequencies that's happening. All right? But I ain't here to preach to you or teach to you. Thank IG, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't speak to you. I'm telling you, you ain't got to take this as no advice. You ain't got to listen to me. You can get off of here and go back and start focusing on parallel compression and all this and side chaining, right? You can make that be the focus of your mix. I side chain the bass to the kick and all that. Yeah, that's cool, and sometimes you might need to do that, but that shouldn't drive your decisions. That shouldn't drive what gear you're going to buy. That shouldn't drive the mix. Breathe. And I'm telling myself, breathe through the mix. Breathe through situations. See them for what they are. Accept them for what they are. And once you accept what is, be sensitive to what is. Be sensitive to the intention of the artist. Be sensitive to the intention of the music so that you can translate the emotion. Because if your mix does not provide or help to accentuate an emotion once you're done, because the mix is the end, right? The mix is the end. There was all this work that was done before it. If your mix does not make sure that that emotion is being felt, no matter how good the mix is, it won't be a great mix. And there's a huge difference between a good mix and a great mix. A good mix can be technically good. You can take a bad song and have a good mix, but you can never get a great mix out of a bad song. You can never get a great mix out of a bad song, okay? So I just wanted to put that on there. That's been on my heart these last couple of days as I was working through mixing, and as I'm always checking the comments and I talk with people and I get this never ending thirst for technical knowledge, but really a lot of us haven't learned how to look at a mix and perceive it in the right way. And we want to just skip straight to all the technical stuff, which is fine. But I feel like even understanding how to properly look at a mix, how to properly receive a mix, how to be sensitive to a mix, that can help lead you into what technical things you need to focus your attention on. Right? You gotta start to be more sensitive to the things around you. Be more sensitive to the music. Be more sensitive to the nuances of the emotional changes in yourself. Be more sensitive to the nuances of the emotion of the music and of the world. So, in closing, I just want to say this. Thank y'all all for tapping in. Thank y'all for sharing. But I got one more thing to say. If the song ain't good, the mix will never be great. And it's almost pointless to work on mixes of songs that are not good. It's almost pointless to work on. Not almost. It is. It's flat out pointless to work on mixes of songs that ain't good. And by good, I mean that they have taken the time to make sure that the composition, the lyrics, and the performance of that composition and lyrics have an emotion attached to them and an intentional emotion. Maybe that's what songwriters need to do first and foremost. Before you even start writing a song, if you write down on a piece of paper, write down the emotion at the top. And maybe that's good for the mix engineers too, right? At the top of your mix notes, when you about to start a mix, write down what emotion you trying to achieve. Is it happiness? Is it sadness? Is it suspense? Is it excitement? You know, whatever. What is the emotion that you want to achieve? And let that be your final destination on your GPS, right? Not how many luffs. See, we fucking mixing to hit certain luffs. What the hell is the point of that? Who cares how loud the mix is? Because I'm sure all of y'all, at some point in time, you've been somewhere where a song is just playing in the background. You hear it on somebody else's car as they driving by, and it made you feel some type of way. And it ain't because it sounded perfect. It's because the composition was there, the intent was there, the emotion was there. All right. I'm about to go and be sensitive. I'm about to go and be sensitive, man. So, thank y'all for tapping in. Thank you. Make sure y'all share this. I'm going to post it up on the page if you just tapped in. But, you know, that's where we at today. If y'all had questions and all that, and I missed it, I ain't get to it, I'm sorry. Believe me, I am sensitive to that, too. I couldn't get to it. I just had something on my heart that I got to get to, and now I'm out of time. So, thank you for tapping in. Thank you for supporting with badges. Thank you for hitting share. Thank you for commenting. And more than importantly, I hope that in some way that, you know, this has been helpful to you if you spent your time here with me over these last 30, 40 minutes. All right. I'm Wavy Wayne. If you want to learn more, visit my website, wavywayne.com. Working on tools and courses that will help you record and mix better, faster, and more sensitively. And with that said, I'm out.